Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 8th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Tuesday, November 8th here today. Coming off of an exciting night last night in the world of sports. They had a lot of basketball on. It was opening night for college basketball. As you can see, I'm rocking the Kentucky shirt today. They got a big win last night over Howard, 95-63. It was an expected win, obviously. These first couple games, even on Friday, expected win. These are kind of games to really get you ready, see what guys are playing well, see kind of what pieces fit, and, fully put it together before you play teams like Michigan State, before you play teams like Michigan, UCLA, Gonzaga, and obviously the rest of the SEC once you get into SEC play, which is loaded this year with teams like Arkansas, Alabama, you go to Auburn, all these different teams have a lot of talent. So it was cool. It was a lot of fun last night watching college basketball, seeing it again. You also had a lot of NBA games on. Nets lose a really, really, really tough game to the Mavericks. It was close. It was a nail-biter late. Mavericks just take it, and they win it, and Nets fall 96 to 94. And a tough loss for them. They competed against a good team. They fought against a good team, a team that they got crushed by earlier in the year. And, you hope that they can try to this net team right now is, they competed against the Mavericks. And that's kind of where we're at right now with this net team, where it's like, at least they were competitive, but, there's a lot of issues with this team. They obviously were on the 2-game win streak. They now fall to 4-7 on the year. Whatever happens with the coaching coming up, there's still a lot of things that need to be fixed. There are a lot of things that need to be done with this net team before the season's all said and done, in my opinion. And it's not a great start to the year. It has all the makings of being a long, long year, but we'll see how it all plays out. So they lose 96-64. The Nets will have a day off today. They'll be back. They have a day off. Knicks as well. No NBA games on today, so not much NBA tonight. Knicks got the win last night over the Timberwolves. So a good win for the Knicks. They get to 500 on the season. And the Nets obviously lose on Tuesday. Tomorrow, or Wednesday rather, you'll have Nets-Knicks back at Barclays. So you'll have that matchup there. Should be good. Little Nets-Knicks action. Always a fun matchup to watch. It's always good. So you got Nets-Knicks tomorrow, and you got Rangers-Islanders tonight. So, New York sports battling it out against each other over the course of the next, 2 days here. Tonight with the Rangers-Isles, and tomorrow night with the Nets-Knicks at Barclays. So a lot to get into today. We're going to open up today's podcast with going to get to Kentucky. We're going to talk about the basketball, game last night between Kentucky and Howard. It was a good win for Kentucky. Thought they came out, thought we saw a lot of really, really positives, a lot of really good positives from this game. Again, it's against Howard. You can only take so much from this. This is a game you were expected to win. This is a game you should have won. Kentucky did that. They win by, 32. That's all expected. But there still is a lot of positives to takeaways to take from this game. And that show us all that Kentucky's got a good group this year, and that this team can do some serious damage when March comes around, and you obviously have the entire March Madness and all that excitement. And then we'll get to the Edwin Diaz news as well. I actually uploaded a podcast yesterday on my Bubbs Talking Baseball about Edwin Diaz, so if you've already seen that, I'm going to talk about it again here with Diaz, put a little bit of a different spin on it, as obviously get into it, talk about what this means for the Mets. They lock up their star closer, 5-year, $102 million deal, an historic contract. And the way I look at it as, it's a historic contract for after coming off of an historic season for the New York Mets star reliever in Edwin Diaz, who was by far the best closer in all of baseball this year, and the Mets lock him up. So that is one name off the board in what should be an entertaining and exciting free agency. And obviously already you've got all these guys opting out, teams picking up players' options. So already the free agency process has began, and the Mets make the first big move. We'll get into that as well. So with all that being said, a lot to get into today on the podcast. This is the Bubbs on Sports podcast, and let's get right into it. So last night, college basketball was back. It was great to see that, great to hear that. All the games are basically blowouts. this is just a start. The start of the season's always, you got to get past these first couple games where you're expected to win and stuff, and you get past those, and then you really get into the good games. The next Tuesday, a week from today, you're going to get a really good matchup between Michigan State and Kentucky, which, is going to be a good test for Kentucky. You're going to have a good early season matchup, an opportunity to prove yourself early on. I know Michigan State comes into the season unranked, but Tom Izzo and that team always can cause some damage to whoever they play, and that's going to be a really interesting matchup, especially a game that Kentucky's going to be on the road, and Michigan State's always a tough environment to play in. So that's always it's a neutral site game rather, but still, it's you're not home, you're not home for that game, neutral site. So Michigan State's always a tough team to play. So, and I know Kentucky's expected to win that game, and that should be a win, but it's still a Big Ten opponent. It's still a game earlier in the year where some teams are still trying to find themselves. It could be one of those games where it's close and it could go either way. So these are the type of games here against Howard, Friday, which I can't even pronounce the team's name, DeQuence, however you pronounce the name. I struggle with that name. Even that game on Friday, you should win that and continue to see positives. So again, these are the first couple games of the season, right? You can only take so much from these games. Because, again, Howard, you played, right? And Howard is not a bad team for the conference that they play in, but they're not going to go on the road and really compete with a team like Kentucky or a team like Gonzaga. And for Kentucky's standpoint, you didn't just beat Gonzaga. You didn't just beat Michigan or UCLA or North Carolina or Kansas or Auburn, right? So you got to take these games. You obviously take the positives, but you can't, see this game one win and say, oh, we're winning the national championship, we're going all the way come March. But there was a lot of positives last night, and you can take those positives because of what you saw and the way they played. And I really thought last night was some of the better basketball we've seen out of a Kentucky team in a long time. Again, it's a game you're supposed to win. Not against a good opponent that's not very good, against a team that's not nearly as talented as you are. It's expected, but we saw the outline of what this team could be when they go and play the big-time teams, as I've mentioned. So last night they get the win 95-63. They get to 1-0 on the year. The Kentucky comes into this as the fourth-ranked team in the nation, so they're pretty high to start the year, which is obviously something that, really is it's a statement because it shows, what everybody thinks of you going into the year. Obviously, a lot can change, but being the fourth-ranked team in the nation to open things up is obviously a pretty good high ranking. I mean, you're a top 4 team. And Kentucky played last night like a top 4 team, and they showed a lot of positives. And, this is a Kentucky team where it's a good balance of youth and veterans. Oscar Tshiebwe, who did not play last night, still dealing with the knee injury. Wheeler did not play last night, also with an injury. So you do have a couple of those guys that were out last night. Lance Ware played, Jacob Toppin played, C.J. Frederick played after, his terrible injury last season. All of those guys played. And C.J. Frederick is a guy that was supposed to be a key factor last year, had a terrible, terrible leg injury before the season started. And then, obviously, done for the year, it was over. So this is his first game. He was obviously the transfer from Iowa. Excellent shooter. Showed a lot of positives last night. So he's kind of that veteran guy. And he even said, too, he's been in the system for a year. So, he learned a lot last year. Even though he was on the sideline, he learned a lot of what Cal does, what the offense looks like, what the defense looks like, how the team operates, and how it was different from his time in Iowa to now, coming to Kentucky. So, he showed a lot of positives last night, but he's a veteran. As I mentioned, Lance Ware, Jacob Toppin. Even you go to a guy like Reeves. He's a guy, transfer, very good shooter, a guy that's going to score a lot. And, he's a guy that's going to get to the hoop. He can shoot the three. Antonio Reeves, very solid player, takes a lot of shots. Last season, I think they said he was averaging about 14 attempts per game or something like that. So he's going to shoot. He led the team in points yesterday with 22. He's a guy. Yes, transfer. Yes, first year, but a veteran. And then you got your young guys. Chris Livingston. Cason Wallace, who showed a lot of really good things last night. A guy that 2 5-stars right there, 2 young guys, 2 freshmen, have a lot of potential and could do some serious things. You really saw what this offense can do. Finally, some legit rhythm. Like, the Kentucky has been awful the past couple years with three-point shooting. Even last year with Kellen Grady, who was good, he's not what, Antonio Reeves can be, and even C.J. Frederick. I mean, C.J. Frederick, when he is on, even in his time in Iowa, he's one of the best shooters in the nation, and there's no debating that. And that's why Kentucky brought him in. Last season, unfortunate injury, stuff happens like that. But he's a guy that could be a huge, huge piece because this Kentucky team is so much better when they're able to shoot the three ball and they're able to shoot from their perimeter because they're very good interior. And Cason Wallace last night showed a lot of really good things interior. He had, 15 points, went 7-11 from the field, had 2 shots from the three-point range, made one of them. He also added on 8 rebounds from that. I love the way he attacked the basket. But back to C.J. Frederick, it adds that perimeter element. And that's so big because last year, so many teams are heavy focused on, Oscar. And that shows you how good of a year he had winning National Player of the Year. But now some of the attention can be brought off of him where he doesn't have to do everything because now you've got Antonio Reeves that can get out on the perimeter and shoot the three. You've got a guy like C.J. Frederick who can get out and, shoot the three as well. Now you've got 2-3 guys, even Cason Wallace. Maybe he's not as, good as a Reeves or a Frederick, but even he can make some noise from deep. And he showed that last night. Obviously, he only took 2 shots, made one of them, but even he's a guy that if you need to, he can come up in a moment and shoot. So this Kentucky team really went from, and it showed last night, they went from last season really only having Kellen Grady and to a certain extent Ty Washington as your kind of, your perimeter shooters to now 2 really good. You can make the argument to some of the better just pure scorers in the nation. Antonio Reeves is one of the better scorers in the nation. And C.J. Frederick's one of the best three-point shooters in the nation. And you add Cason Wallace on that, who can do a lot interior. He's not going to light it up from 3, but he can make the 3. He can hit threes. He's capable, right? If you need him to, he will. So I was really pleased at the balance that this Kentucky team showed. They went 11-24 from three-point range. That's 45.8%. And their field goals, 54.8. They went 34 of 62. Very rarely have we been able to say that about past Kentucky teams. Because past Kentucky teams, they can't hit the 3. And even interior at times, they struggle. They rely a lot on, some mid-range and, obviously interior stuff. But now you're able to stretch the floor. Now you're able to get guys out three-point range. Now you're able to spread things out a little bit. Oscar Tshiebwe, I think, could even have a bigger season because, some of the attention, obviously a lot of attention is going to be on him. He's the reigning National Player of the Year. But with guys on the perimeter now that can legitimately shoot, I mean, that's huge. That's a massive, massive upgrade for this team. And it also showed you last night how much we were missing C.J. Frederick. And I know on the first shot, he went 2 for 5 from 3. I know on the first, but even his mid-range, he went 6 of 9 overall from the field. So way over, over 50%, 2 of 5 from 3. He had 20 points. That was the second most on the team behind Antonio Reeves, who went 6 of 12 from 3. Reeves, showed you a ton last night. 8 of 16 from the field, 6 of 12 from 3, 22 points. He's a guy that was as good as advertised last night. He's going to score. He's going to shoot. Again, last season, he shot the ball about 14 times per game. That was up there amongst the most in all college basketball. Last night, he shot the ball 16 times, and he shot the 3-12. He's going to shoot. He's going to shoot and shoot and shoot. And that's good. You want guys to shoot. You want guys to take advantage. You want guys to, have opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities. Because, again, so many years now, we've had these teams in Kentucky, specifically the terrible, terrible COVID team, that didn't even get out of the first round of the SEC tournament. And in last year's team that lost to St. Peter's, obviously in the first round, 15-seeded St. Peter's, who ended up making the run. Those teams lack that three-point element. And this Kentucky team has that. And that's great. And, again, it's Howard. Expected victory. This was an expected win. But there was a lot of really good things. Defensively as well. Rebounding was good. We out-rebounded them 42-37. We did a really good job moving the ball. 20 assists. They only had 10. And again, your leading scorers, Antonio Reeves, 22. C.J. Frederick, 20. Cason Wallace, 15. Jacob Toppin, 15. All those guys were double-digit points. So you had 4 guys that were up there, above 15 points. Even Chris Livingston had himself a nice little game, 9 points. You also had, topped on 4 rebounds onto that. Jacob Toppin had a double-double, 11 boards, 15 points. He's a guy that in his senior year, he's going to get a lot of looks this year. And, he's a guy that you would hope and you would think really kind of make that big jump. Because he's been all right the past couple seasons. But this year, he's a guy that you would expect to kind of go out and make that big jump where, he's making, he starts to make a little bit more of a name for himself here in his senior year and in his third year at Kentucky, where he's going to get a lot more opportunities. So, and again, Oscar was out last night. So is, Oscar was out, so was Wheeler. So you didn't even get to see this really full team. And the same thing with Damian Collins, another guy that was out last night. And a guy that, sophomore this season, should get a lot more looks this year than he did last season. As a sophomore, as a very good forward for this team. He's a guy that you would expect to have a bigger year. So you were missing Damian Collins, you were missing Oscar Sheba, and you're missing Wheeler. You could make the argument those are 3 of your better players, and they were missing last night, and you still saw the rhythm of this team. And I got to talk to, I talked about Frederick, talked about Reeves, got the top in a little bit. Livingston as well. Nice night last night. 5-star recruit. Cason Wallace, to me, out of all the guys, probably was the most impressive. Just the way he looked so comfortable for it being his first game at the at the college basketball level. He looked very comfortable last night, and he's a guy that, again, 5-star recruit. He's a freshman. But last night, I loved the way he attacked the rim. Really did. He got to the hoop, got to the basket, capitalized. And again, it's so big. You look at all these other teams that can win championships or win national titles, I should say. Those teams can shoot the 3, and they're very good interior. Cason Wallace last night, very good getting to the interior. And that's another element for teams that they got to worry about. Not only do you got to worry about Frederick, Reeves, from 3-point range, but now you got to worry about, like, Cason Wallace last night was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Getting to the hoop. That soft touch. The little, that soft touch to the basket. Attacking the rim. I always say that in basketball, even going to the nets. You attack I love when guys just attack the basket. Now, there are times where you need to kick it out and shoot a 3. If you got 3 guys around you around the hoop, you're not going to be able to go up for it, especially if you got a 6'10 center on you and you're a 6-foot guard, right? Then there's times you got to kick it out to one of your perimeter guys, to a guy like a CJ Frederick, to a guy like an Antonio Reeves, or whoever it may be. But last night, I loved the way he got to the basket. Got, was in the corner, got the ball, quick move, went to the right, switched to the left, went up, quick little soft touch, makes it. You like to see that stuff. That adds an extra added element to this offense. And an element like that where you're able to get a guy that has that soft touch. You're able to get a guy that can get to the interior, can get to the basket, and capitalize at a high rate. That was great to see. And again, only a freshman. And you would expect at times some of these freshmen to take some time to grow and take some time to learn. Last night, he looked like he looks like he's been in college basketball for a very long time. He did not look like a freshman, especially with his basketball IQ. Sometimes early on, guys just want to shoot. They get the ball and they just want to shoot it. Knowing when was the right time to shoot, knowing when the right time was to take it, pass it, and knowing when the right time to go to the left, go to the right, whatever it was, quick move, boom, go up, layup, good. So I really like the way he attacked the rim. And again, interior, perimeter, finally we have that kind of balance with this team, which is so refreshing to see, and something that can really, really be lethal and dangerous, as the season goes on. So good win last night for Kentucky, 95-63, as I mentioned. On Friday, they'll have another game, and then Tuesday, they'll face up against Michigan State, and then South Carolina State, and then after that, it's Gonzaga, which is going to be an exciting matchup. Looking forward to that game. And then, you head into December, you got a matchup against Michigan, which should be exciting. You got a matchup then against UCLA, and then you get into your SEC play. And that's when you get into January. Teams like Alabama, Tennessee, Kansas, although that's not SEC play. That's obviously Big 12 SEC, but Kansas, a lot of really good SEC teams. The SEC is loaded this year. Loaded. Arkansas, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, loaded with talent and really good teams in the SEC. And, I mean, it's just, and even with, again, I talked about it yesterday, even with Auburn missing, losing out guys due to the draft, specifically a guy like a Jabari Smith, who was so good last year for Auburn and really one of the best, and that's how he got drafted so high. But, even a team like that, Bruce Pearl, they're so well coached, they're going to be a threat. They're going to be, they're going to play like a top 10 team. And again, Tennessee as well, another team that is a serious threat, and a team that Kentucky and Tennessee always go at it. So the SEC's loaded. It's one of the better conferences in all college basketball, and Kentucky's right up there, obviously. And some of these early season matchups against Michigan State, and if you can make a statement against a team like Gonzaga, those games are huge. Like those games are huge to take advantage of earlier in the year. So a lot of, the schedule's rough to start. I mean, not many teams, within the first month of the season got to play Michigan State, got to play Gonzaga, got to play Michigan, and got to play UCLA. Not many teams. So, again, and I know Michigan State's unranked, but again, they're well coached. So you always got to look out for them. They're well coached. I mean, very rarely do you get a start to the year this much. And obviously that Kentucky-Michigan game is in London. That's the London game. So that should be that should definitely be interesting there. But you get Michigan, and then a week from, a little late after that you get Yale, and then after that you get UCLA. So a lot of good matchups early on this season for Kentucky, and a lot to look forward to as we've just started the college basketball season. All right, so now we move on to a little bit of baseball, as the obviously the MLB postseason's done with, and now you get into the off season with all the fun rumors and all the exciting rumors and signings and trades and all that stuff. And Steve Cohen, owner of the Mets, wasted no time yesterday Sunday, I should say, getting a deal done. World Series ends on Saturday, or Friday technically, with the Phillies beating the Astros, and you hear that, or never mind, it was Saturday. Saturday they win with the Phillies beating the Astros, and Sunday, the very next day, Steve Cohen wastes no time signing, extending star closer Edwin Diaz. And this is a Steve Cohen thing to do. But look, my first reaction is, and again, I did a Bubbs Talking Baseball podcast on this yesterday, if you're interested in checking it out. But look, I mean, I don't think we're very surprised that, Diaz is back with the Mets. I think we all kind of expected, Diaz to be back. It is a massive 5-year, $102 million contract. It is a very big move and a historic, the most ever for a reliever. Just a well-deserved move for Diaz. And look, Edwin Diaz has had an interesting tenure with the Mets. His first year was terrible. Second year was better. Third year was obviously, was really good. And then this year was phenomenal. So it's been a very interesting tenure when you really look at it. But I know a lot of Met fans, sometimes, some Met fans I know are, I don't want to say upset, but a little nervous that this move might have some bust potential because of the fact that, in his 4 years here, he had that one really bad year in 2019. He had a better year in 2020, was good in 2021, and then here comes a contract year. Oh, now all of a sudden he's dominant again. So I do think there is that concern amongst Mets fans. I think overall, Mets fans are excited. I think overall, Mets fans are happy because, again, their bullpen was awful. Outside of Edwin Diaz, this Met team, this bullpen was not good. It wasn't good outside of Edwin Diaz. And they need more help with the bullpen. But without Edwin Diaz, the bullpen's awful. So you need more help, obviously. But you needed to bring back Diaz, especially when there's going to be teams around the league that are going to be interested in a guy to go out and, to be that elite closer. There's a lot of teams in baseball right now that can be a closer. I can name a team right off my head. Your crosstown rival New York Yankees, they could use a closer right now. And again, I know Loizaga played well in the postseason. I understand, Clay Holmes had a good start, but there's still a lot of questions there. Chapman's probably not back. You wonder with Loizaga, and Clay Holmes, is he really good? Clay Holmes, Loizaga's good, but would you rather Loizaga be that kind of setup man and then have a number one closer out there? So your other team, in New York, could have definitely been interested in Diaz. So this was a much needed move. And again, it shows me Steve Cohen wasting no time. World Series ends Saturday. Boom. Sunday, deal done. I mean, just that quick. That quickly a deal gets done, and it again shows us all that Steve Cohen's willing to go out, spend a big amount of money on a star player, a guy that's coming off of the best year, one of the best years of his career. It's a debate between this year and 2018. I think a lot of Met fans would probably say this year. I know 2018 was very good. It was definitely close. A little skewed because he pitched 73. He had 73 games pitched in 2019 or 2018. He pitched 61 games this year. So there was a lot more games pitched in 2018. That's why when you look at some of the numbers, they're a little bit higher and a little bit skewed because he pitched 12 more games in 2018 than he did this year. But that's just the way the season played out. But again, this shows us that Steve Cohen's wasting no time. He's willing to go out. He's going to spend money. He's going to do everything he can in his power to build this team. After a upsetting wild card exit, his first task was getting back Diaz. And they got two big pitchers. Number one, Diaz, done. Now DeGrom's the other one. Now DeGrom's the other task. Does he go out and give DeGrom a big amount of money? We'll see. It's going to be interesting because I think, Diaz, prime of his career, big year. DeGrom, struggles late, injuries. The DeGrom move will be definitely very, very interesting. But it tells me, though, is like he gets the Diaz deal done fast. It's almost like now we're bracing for a long negotiating process with DeGrom. Maybe this could be a sign, though. Diaz deal gets done a day after World Series. Boom. 2 days from now, DeGrom gets done. Boom. Your two biggest questions of the offseason. Your two biggest, some of the two biggest pitchers on the market. Some of the two bigger free agents out there are now back with the Mets. And that's a credit to Steve Cohen. He's an owner that's going to spend money. And this is what he's going to do. He's going to give guys massive deals. He's going to, do whatever he can to try to build this team up from their upsetting wild card exit. In a way, try and build like a super team. And it starts right now with Diaz, extending him. And who else do you get? Do you bring back DeGrom? Do you bring in a big bat like a Trey Turner? What else do you do? The options are endless when Steve Cohen's your general manager. Or not general manager, owner rather. The options are endless. So he strikes first, wasted no time, and I like this move. My personal opinion, I like it. Again, I understand the argument that, it was a contract year. Every Met fan wanted him extended, but would they give him this much? I don't know. I don't disagree with that because I look at it this way. Edwin Diaz in his career has played 7 seasons. 3 with the Mariners, 4 now with the Mets. It's crazy it's been 4 years with the Mets. It felt like just yesterday you hear the move of him and Cano, getting swapped, Jared Kelenic being in that deal and all that stuff. But you also got to look at the trade. Mets won that trade by a lot. They got Diaz, and the Mariners got Cano and Kelenic. Number 1, where's Cano? Number 2, where's Jared Kelenic these days? Jared Kelenic's on the Mariners, but he stinks. Every time he gets called up to the MLB, he's not good. So Diaz is amazing, right? He's a great pitcher. So I look at it this way. Is 7 years in his MLB career. He's had 7 years in his career. 3 with the Mariners, 4 with the Mets. I look at it this way. 6 of those 7 years, he was good. You can make the argument, all right, 2, 3 of those years, he was dominant. But he was very good, and he was good in 6 of the 7 years. And his first year he wasn't good was his first year in New York, where he pitched to a 5.59 ERA in 66 game pitch, had a record of 2-11, and was a complete embarrassment for the New York Mets, and only had 26 saves that year. After the year before, he had 57 saves. So it was clear that he really struggled. But again, look at the numbers. First year in New York, or look at not the numbers, just look at the outside stuff. First year in New York, coming over from Seattle, big market, media, big trade, lots of pressure. He wasn't able to handle it in his first year. He struggled. But now 2020, he was better. 2021 was better. And this year was dominant. So, to me, I don't like, I think this is a perfect move for the Mets because he has found a way to pitch in New York. His first year, he struggled in New York. He had a lot of pressure on him to come up and execute and play at a high level because of the trade that went down. But at the same time, it's like, at the same time, it's kind of looking at it as six of his 7 years, he's been very good. So you could look at it as and say, he was bad in 2018 or bad in 2019. He's bad in, he was good in 2021. He's dominant this year, contract year. But I look at it as he's had one bad year in his career. And it was his first year in New York. So this has been an odd trade because you get the trade Diaz and Cano. Cano's gone now. He's no longer even on the Mets. He's gone now. You send Kelenic over to the Mariners in that 2018 trade. So this has been an odd deal because Cano never worked out with New York. Obviously coming over in the trade. Never worked out with the Mets. And Diaz has, and Kelenic has stunk with the Mariners. So it's been a very weird trade where Cano no longer with the Mets and Kelenic cannot hit a baseball at the major league level. He's dominant in the AAA, cannot hit when he gets to the major leagues. And as for Diaz, well, he's coming off of one of his best seasons of his career and one of the better closer seasons out there. So he was eighth in saves this year with 32, pitched to a 1.31 ERA. And to me, I think this is a good move. You lock up your best closer. You needed to because your bullpen's weak behind him. And you still need a lot of pieces to that bullpen to add on. But you got to at least like this first step by Steve Cohen securing Edwin Diaz. And what's next? Well, is DeGrom next? Do they go out and sign a big hitter, big bat? What do they do? We'll see. Steve Cohen's always got something up his sleeve. So Edwin Diaz Mets re-sign Diaz to a 5-year, $102 million contract as he comes back to the Mets. So, should be good. All right, so now we move on to the New York Sports Update here and finish things off for the day. Not a ton going on tonight. No NBA games, no NFL. Obviously, MLB season's done. You do have some NHL games on, though, tonight. A good amount of them, in fact. You got the Flyers, Blues, Red Wings, Canadians, Canucks, Senators, Coyotes, Sabres, Flames, Devils, Maple Leafs, Golden Knights, Oilers, Lightning, Stars, Jets, Kraken, Predators, and the Kings, Wild. And the Rangers, Islanders tonight at the Garden, 7 Eastern, ESPN Plus, MSG as well. 8-5 Islanders versus the 6-4-3 Rangers. Over-under set at 6 for that game tonight at MSG. By the way, NFL last night, Ravens got the win over the Saints 27-13. So a good win for Baltimore as they get to 6-3 on the year. A tough loss for New Orleans as they now fall to 3-6 on the season. And good win for the Ravens. Double-digit victory. They were just a better team. I mean, Saints with their whole quarterback situation. It's definitely an interesting spot the Saints are in at the quarterback spot. So I got last night's pick correct. I did predict the Ravens. So that means I am 83-52 at the halfway mark of the year. So we're halfway through it. 18 weeks. We're through 9. And crazy that we're already halfway through. And I'm 83-52, and now we await week 10. So went 9-4 last week, 31 games above 500 on the year, and now we look ahead to the second half of the season, week 10, which will open up on Thursday with a matchup of the Falcons-Panthers, which should be a win for the Falcons. I don't see why they wouldn't win that game, but should be interesting because the Panthers are bad, Falcons are all right. Panthers are terrible. They're not bad. Panthers are embarrassing. They are an embarrassing team. And as a Jet fan, you feel great because you're not talking about the draft at week 9. You're talking about playoffs as the Jets are 6-3 going to the bye week, as I talked about yesterday. So a lot to look forward to, coming up in the NFL, MLB offseason just getting started, NBA, NHL in full swing, college basketball's first night was last night. So a lot going on here. In the month of November, and as we get into December and obviously get into the winter months, a lot to look forward to in the world of sports. So that will do it for today's podcast. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.